Naira adjusted the controls of her research vessel as she entered Earth's atmosphere, her iridescent scales shifting colors with concentration. As the senior xenobiologist of the Etherian Science Council, she had visited countless worlds, but Earth held a particular fascination. The humans, despite their technological limitations, displayed remarkable adaptability and resilience. The ship's sensors gathered data as she maintained a high altitude, careful to stay above detection range of the primitive radar systems. Her mission was purely observational: catalog the species' development, assess their potential, and leave without a trace. The Etherians had strict protocols about interference with developing civilizations. A warning flash across her console broke her concentration. Energy surge detected, the ship's AI announced. Unknown origin. Shields at 60%. Naira's tentacles flew across the holographic interface, trying to locate the source. This shouldn't be possible. Earth didn't have weapons capable of penetrating Etherian shielding. Another blast rocked the ship, sending her instruments into chaos. Multiple hostile signatures detected, the AI continued. Shield failure imminent. Recommend immediate withdrawal. But it was too late. The final blast sent her ship into a spiral, its systems failing one by one. Naira fought for control as the ground rushed up to meet her. The last thing she saw before impact was the snow-covered peaks of a mountain range, pristine and beautiful in their isolation. She awoke to the crack of sparking circuits and the acrid smell of burned metal. The crash had wedged her ship into a narrow valley, partially buried in snow. Emergency systems flickered weakly, providing minimal life support. Naira checked her environmental suit, intact, thankfully. Earth's atmosphere was breathable for her species, but the cold would be deadly without protection. As she assessed the damage, her sensors picked up movement outside. Something was approaching, a local life form. Naira activated her camouflage field, her scales shifting to match the metallic interior of her ship. The protocol was clear: avoid contact at all costs. The sound of crunching snow grew closer. Through the cracked viewport, she saw a figure approaching, a human, bundled against the cold. They moved with purpose, clearly having spotted the crash. The human carried some kind of equipment, probably scientific instruments given the isolated location. Naira's heart raced. She needed to evade detection, but her options were limited. The ship's teleporter was offline, and her injuries from the crash made movement difficult. The human was getting closer, now close enough that Naira could see their features through the protective gear, sharp eyes scanning the wreckage methodically. The ship's AI crackled to life. Warning. Multiple hostile vessels on approach. Estimated arrival, 17 minutes. Naira's scales rippled with anxiety. Whatever had shot her down was coming to finish the job. She was out of options. This human might be her only chance at survival, but contact would violate everything her people believed about handling primitive species. The human reached the ship's entrance, now partially exposed by the crash. They began examining the unusual metal, running some kind of scanning device over its surface. Naira watched as they discovered the emergency release mechanism. Clever, she had to admit. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the door began to open. Snow swirled into the cabin as the human entered cautiously. Their eyes widened behind their goggles as they took in the clearly alien technology. When their gaze fell on Naira's partially camouflaged form, she saw surprise but not fear. Instead, there was something she hadn't expected from a primitive species: curiosity. The humans slowly removed their goggles and outer mask, revealing a weathered face with striking gray eyes. "I'm Dr. Raven Winters," they said softly, raising empty hands in a peaceful gesture. "And I'm guessing you're not from around here." Before Naira could respond, her sensors blared another warning. The hostile ships were getting closer. She had to make a decision: maintain protocol and likely die, or trust this human and hope for survival. As she looked into those calm gray eyes, she made her choice. Her camouflage field dropped, revealing her true form, humanoid but clearly alien, with iridescent scales and multiple prehensile appendages. The human, Raven, took a small step back but held their ground, still more fascinated than afraid. "I am Naira, xenobiologist of the Aetherian Science Council," she said, her translator converting her harmonic speech to English. "And I need your help. Something is hunting me, something that shouldn't be here. We have approximately 15 minutes before they arrive." Raven nodded, already shifting into action. "My research station is hidden in these mountains. If we move now, we might make it before your friends arrive." They paused, offering a gloved hand. "That is, if you're willing to trust a primitive human." Naira noticed the slight smile that accompanied those words. This human had already deduced more about her civilization's attitudes than she had revealed. Taking the offered hand, she pulled herself up, wincing at her injuries. "I'm beginning to think," she replied, "that my people's definition of primitive might need revision." As they made their way out of the wreckage, Naira caught one last glimpse of her ship's interior. In those twisted ruins lay the remains of her old certainties about humanity's place in the galaxy. Whatever happened next would change everything, for her, for Raven, and possibly for both their species. The mountain winds howled around them as they began their trek through the snow, the sound of approaching ships growing ever closer. Their footprints filled quickly with fresh snow, hiding their trail, as human and alien moved together into an uncertain future. The trek through the mountain snow was grueling, even with Raven's expert guidance. Naira's environmental suit compensated for the cold, but her injuries from the crash made each step a challenge. They moved as quickly as possible through narrow passes and along treacherous ridges, the sound of searching ships echoing off the peaks behind them. "Almost there," Raven said, pointing to what appeared to be a solid rock face ahead. "My station is hidden inside the mountain. The natural mineral deposits interfere with most scanning technology." Naira's scientific curiosity piqued despite their dire situation. "Is that why you chose this location? To study the geological anomalies?" "Among other things," Raven replied with a hint of mystery in their voice. "I've spent 5 years here, documenting phenomena that most of my colleagues dismiss as impossible. I suppose finding an alien in my backyard validates some of my more controversial theories." They reached the rock face, and Raven pressed their hand against a seemingly random pattern of stone. A hidden door slid open, revealing a sophisticated airlock system. Naira's sensors indicated technology far more advanced than what she'd expected from Earth's current development level. "This isn't standard human technology," she observed as they entered. Raven secured the door behind them. "Let's just say you're not the first visitor I've encountered up here. Though you're certainly the most talkative." The inner door opened to reveal a surprisingly well-equipped research station. Banks of monitors displayed data from various sensors, and scattered among the human equipment were pieces of technology that definitely weren't of Earth origin. "You've been studying them," Naira realized. "The same hostiles that shot me down." "For years," Raven confirmed, helping Naira to a seat and gathering medical supplies. "They've been making subtle incursions for decades, testing Earth's defenses, gathering intelligence. Most sightings get dismissed as conspiracy theories or natural phenomena. I've been tracking their patterns, trying to understand their intentions." As Raven treated her injuries with a surprisingly advanced medical kit, Naira's mind raced with implications. The Aetherian Science Council had no records of other alien activities on Earth. Either their intelligence was severely lacking, or someone had been deliberately hiding this information. "Why are you helping me?" Naira asked suddenly. "Your species is supposed to be primitive, xenophobic, afraid of the unknown. Yet you took one look at me and offered assistance without hesitation." Raven's hands stilled for a moment. "Maybe your species needs to update its definition of primitive. Humanity may not have mastered interstellar travel, but we've learned a few things about adapting to survive." And in my experience, fear and hatred of the unknown are choices, not inherent traits. A warning alarm from one of the monitors interrupted their conversation. The hostile ships were sweeping the area in an expanding pattern. Though the station's shielding protected them from detection, they could clearly see the search patterns on Raven's instruments. They're being more aggressive than usual, Raven noted, studying the data. They typically avoid such overt activity. You must be important to them. Naira moved to examine the readings, her scientific training taking over. These energy signatures, they're familiar somehow, but distorted. Like a corrupted version of Etherian technology. Could they be rogue elements from your own civilization? Impossible, Naira started to say, but stopped herself. After everything she'd seen today, perhaps it was time to question her certainties. Actually, there were rumors, years ago. A faction that believed we should take a more active role in guiding developing species. They disappeared after their views were rejected by the Council. And now they're back, with advanced weapons and an apparent interest in Earth, Raven concluded. The question is, why now? And why did they target you specifically? Naira's scales shifted to a deep blue of concern. My research. I've been studying evidence that suggests our traditional metrics for evaluating species development might be flawed. That we might be overlooking crucial factors in how civilizations advance. She looked around the hidden station, at the impossible combination of human ingenuity and alien technology. Much like what you've accomplished here. Raven smiled. Sounds like we've both been questioning our society's assumptions. Now we just have to survive long enough to share our findings. A distant explosion rocked the mountain, causing dust to fall from the ceiling. The hostile ships were getting closer, their search pattern tightening. Raven quickly moved to secure loose equipment. They're not going to give up, Naira said, watching the scanner displays. As long as I'm here, you're in danger. If you're suggesting leaving to protect me, forget it, Raven replied firmly. You've just handed me proof of everything I've been working to verify. Besides, they added with a grin, I've got 5 years of research on these visitors and their capabilities. You need me as much as I need you. Naira found herself returning the smile, her scales shifting to warmer hues. An alliance then? Between a primitive human and an enlightened Etherian? I prefer to think of it as a collaboration between two scientists who've learned to look past their cultural assumptions. Raven extended their hand. Partners? As Naira took the offered hand, another explosion shook the station. Their pursuers were getting closer, but somehow she felt more confident than she had since the crash. Together, they moved to the main console, beginning to plan their next move. First, Raven said, pulling up detailed scans of the hostile ships, we need to understand what we're dealing with. I've been collecting data on their technology for years. With your knowledge of Etherian science, we might finally make sense of it all. As they worked, human and alien together, Naira realized that this unlikely alliance might be more than just a means of survival. It could be the key to understanding why these mysterious attackers were so interested in Earth, and perhaps to bridging the gap between their civilizations in ways the Etherian Council had never imagined possible. Days passed in Raven's hidden mountain station as Naira and her human ally worked to understand the technology and motives of their mysterious pursuers. The hostile ships maintained their search pattern, but the station's sophisticated shielding kept them hidden. During this time, Naira found herself constantly surprised by Raven's capabilities and insights. Look at this energy signature, Raven said one evening, pointing to a complex waveform on their main screen. It's similar to your ship's power system, but there's something wrong with the quantum stabilization. Naira leaned closer, her iridescent scales reflecting the blue light of the display. You're right. They're pushing the reactors beyond safe limits. That's why the signatures appear corrupted. But how did you recognize the quantum patterns? Raven pulled up another file, showing years of collected data. I've been studying their tech salvaged from crashed probes. Trial and error, mostly. Amazing how much you can learn when everyone thinks you're just a crazy mountain researcher. The casual brilliance of the human's deductions challenged everything Naira had been taught about developing species. According to Etherian protocols, humans weren't supposed to be capable of understanding such advanced concepts for at least another century. You know, Raven continued, with your knowledge and the components I've collected, we might be able to establish communication with your people. Warn them about what's happening here. Naira's scales shifted to a troubled gray. That would mean sharing restricted technology with you. It's forbidden by our highest laws. Higher than the law of survival? Raven asked softly. Sometimes rules need to bend when circumstances change. You've already broken protocol just by talking to me. Before Naira could respond, one of the perimeter alarms activated. A small drone had entered their sensor range, its design unlike anything they'd seen from the hostile ships. Raven quickly brought up the external cameras. That's not one of theirs, they said, studying the image. The design is different. More organic. Naira felt her heart skip. It's Etherian. A rescue probe. Her joy quickly turned to concern. But if they've found us, then our friends up there won't be far behind, Raven finished. They looked at each other, understanding the gravity of their situation. What do you want to do? Naira moved to the console, her tentacles dancing across the controls as she interfaced with the human technology. The ease with which Raven's systems adapted to her input was another testament to the human's ingenuity. We need to send a message before they find the probe, she said. But not to my people. Not yet. She looked at Raven. You have contacts in your scientific community, yes? People who might believe you about all this? Raven nodded slowly, beginning to understand. A few. Dr. Patel at the Astronomical Institute has been supportive of my research. And there's a small network of observers who've been documenting unusual phenomena. But why? Because humanity deserves to know what's coming, Naira replied. These hostiles, whatever their origin, have been testing your defenses, studying your weaknesses. That's not the behavior of simple observers. They're planning an invasion, Raven realized. All these years of probing, gathering data. Yes. And my people's policy of non-interference would prevent them from helping, even if they knew. But if humanity was already aware, already preparing. Raven quickly began composing a message, attaching years of research data. We'll need proof. Something undeniable. Naira hesitated only briefly before connecting her personal database to Raven's system. Use this. Technical specifications of Etherian technology, including defense systems. If these hostiles are using corrupted versions of our tech, this information could help you develop countermeasures. This goes against everything your people believe in, Raven said, even as they began downloading the data. My people believe in preserving life and promoting growth, Naira replied. Sometimes that means recognizing when our old beliefs no longer serve those goals. They worked quickly, compiling data and evidence into a comprehensive package. Raven's network of contacts would be able to verify the information independently, making it harder to dismiss as fantasy. Just as they finished preparing the transmission, another alarm sounded. Multiple ships incoming, Raven announced. They've found the probe. Naira initiated the transmission. How long until your message reaches your contacts? I'm routing it through several secure channels. 10 minutes, maybe less. The mountain shook as energy weapons began targeting the general area. The station's shielding was good, but it wouldn't withstand a direct hit from weapons of that magnitude. We need to move, Raven said, already gathering essential equipment. I have a backup facility in the eastern range. If we can reach it. Another blast rocked the station, closer this time. Warning lights flashed as systems began to fail. Naira helped Raven secure crucial data cores and supplies, their movements synchronized after days of working together. Why are you doing this? Raven asked as they prepared to evacuate. You're risking everything, your position, your future. Naira's scales shifted through a complex pattern of colors before settling on a determined blue. Because you've shown me that my people's understanding of advancement was flawed. True progress isn't just about technological achievement, it's about the wisdom to use knowledge for the benefit of all. The station's main power failed, leaving them in emergency lighting. As they made their way to the escape tunnel, Naira could hear the hostile ships getting closer. She had broken her people's most sacred protocols, shared forbidden knowledge with a supposedly primitive species. Yet watching Raven work, seeing their determination and adaptability, she felt more certain than ever that she had made the right choice. Together, they entered the tunnel just as another blast breached the station's outer defenses. The human and the alien fled into the mountain depths, leaving behind a transmission that would change Earth's future forever. Whether that change would be enough to save humanity from what was coming remained to be seen. The escape tunnel wound deep into the mountain, its walls marked with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. Naira followed Raven through the twisting passages, their footsteps echoing off ancient stone. The rumble of explosions from above grew more distant, but neither of them slowed their pace. These tunnels, Naira said between breaths, her translator struggling with the acoustics of the narrow space. They're not natural. Raven's flashlight beam revealed more of the unusual markings. No, they're not. Found them when I first discovered this location. They're older than human civilization, part of why I chose this spot for my research. Another explosion shook loose debris from the ceiling. Raven checked a small device on their wrist. We're about halfway to the backup facility. The mineral content in these rocks should mask our heat signatures, but they'll figure out we've gone underground eventually. Naira's sensors detected something unusual ahead. Wait. She reached out with her tentacles, feeling the air currents. There's a junction coming up. Multiple paths. Good catch, Raven replied. The tunnel network splits into 3 branches here. I've mapped most of it, but some paths seem to shift and change. As if the tunnels themselves are alive. They reached the junction just as the sound of pursuit echoed from behind them, the scrape of metal on stone and the whir of mechanical searchers. The hostile forces had found the tunnel entrance. Take the right passage, Raven whispered. It leads to a massive chamber. We can lose them in there. The passage opened into a vast cavern that defied belief. Crystalline formations rose like frozen waterfalls, their surfaces etched with the same mysterious symbols they'd seen in the tunnels. Bridges of stone spanned deep chasms, and multiple passages led off in different directions. What is this place? Naira asked in awe, her scales shifting to match the crystal's luminescence. I call it the Nexus, Raven said, leading them toward one of the stone bridges. It's some kind of hub for the tunnel network. The crystals seem to be data storage devices, but I've only managed to decode fragments. The technology is unlike anything I've ever seen, even different from your Etherian systems. The sound of pursuit grew closer. Mechanical drones appeared at the chamber entrance, their red scanning beams sweeping the space. Naira and Raven ducked behind a crystal formation. They're not just searching, Naira observed, studying the drone's movement patterns. They're mapping the chamber. Learning its layout. Which means they'll figure out there's only one way to the backup facility, Raven concluded. We need a diversion. Reaching into their pack, Raven pulled out what looked like small silver spheres. Salvaged these from one of their crashed probes. Managed to reprogram them, but never had a reason to use them until now. Naira recognized the technology, modified Etherian survey drones. You never cease to amaze me, human. Raven grinned, activating the spheres. They hummed to life, sprouting tiny propulsion units. Let's see how they handle a taste of their own technology. The reprogrammed drones shot out from their hiding place, emitting energy signatures similar to Naira's biological patterns. The hostile searchers immediately gave chase, following the decoys deeper into the tunnel network. "It won't fool them for long," Raven said, already moving. "But it should buy us enough time to reach the backup facility." They crossed the stone bridge at a careful run, trying to minimize noise. The chamber's crystalline formations seemed to pulse with internal light as they passed, responding to their presence. Naira's scientific curiosity burned to understand this ancient technology, but survival had to take priority. Reaching another tunnel entrance, they paused to catch their breath. Raven checked their wrist device again. "The backup facility is about 2 kilometers from here. Once we get there, we can access my satellite network, see if our warning message got through." A sudden tremor shook the chamber, different from the explosions above. The crystal formations pulsed brighter, their symbols shifting and changing. Naira's sensors detected a massive energy surge. "The chamber," she said urgently. "It's reacting to something. The hostile ship's weapons must have disturbed Dash." She never finished the sentence. The floor beneath them began to crack, lines of light spreading through the ancient stone. Raven grabbed her arm, pulling her into the tunnel just as the chamber's ceiling started to collapse. They ran through the darkness, the sound of falling rock pursuing them like a living thing. The tunnel itself seemed to be changing, its walls flowing like liquid stone. Naira's sensors were overwhelmed by the energy readings. "This is impossible," she gasped as they ran. "These energy patterns, they're similar to Etherean quantum matrices, but the scale is astronomical." "Welcome to my world," Raven replied breathlessly. "Where impossible things happen daily." The tunnel finally stabilized, the tremors fading behind them. They slowed to a walk, both trying to process what they'd witnessed. Naira's scientific training warred with the evidence of her senses. "Your people never found anything like this?" Raven asked. "In all your studies of Earth?" "No," Naira admitted. "Our surveys showed no signs of advanced technology. But these tunnels, that chamber. They're older than our earliest records." "So either your people missed it," Raven suggested, "or someone wanted it hidden." Before Naira could respond, her sensors detected new energy signatures ahead. But these were familiar, Etherean patterns, pure and undistorted. "We're not alone down here," she said quietly. "There are others. My people." Raven readied one of their salvaged weapons. "Friends or foes?" "I don't know anymore," Naira replied, her scales shifting to uncertain patterns. "After what we've seen, I'm not sure who to trust." They stood in the ancient tunnel, caught between hostile forces behind them and unknown intentions ahead. The backup facility was their only hope of confirming whether their warning had reached the outside world. But reaching it now seemed more dangerous than ever. "Whatever we find," Raven said firmly, "we face it together." Naira's scales settled into a determined blue. "Together," she agreed. The humans' unwavering loyalty, despite everything they discovered, reinforced her conviction that helping Earth had been the right choice. They moved forward cautiously, into whatever revelations or dangers awaited them in the depths of the mountain. The chase had become more than just a flight for survival, it was a journey into mysteries that could reshape both their civilization's understanding of the universe. The Etherean energy signatures grew stronger as Naira and Raven approached what appeared to be another large chamber. Unlike the collapsed nexus, this space hummed with active power. They paused at the entrance, taking in the scene before them. The chamber was filled with Etherean technology, not ruins or artifacts, but a fully functioning outpost. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, and sophisticated monitoring equipment tracked activity throughout the tunnel network. Most surprisingly, the ancient symbols they'd seen throughout the tunnels were integrated into the Etherean systems, pulsing with shared energy. "Your people didn't miss this technology," Raven whispered. "They've been studying it all along." Before Naira could respond, a familiar voice echoed through the chamber. "Correct, human. Though you weren't supposed to discover that fact for at least another century." From behind a bank of equipment stepped an Etherian elder, his scales a deep purple of authority. Naira recognized him immediately, Elder Torin, head of the Science Council's Special Projects Division. Elder, Naira said, her scales shifting between respect and uncertainty. Why are you here? What is all this? This, young Naira, is the true purpose of our Earth observation program. Torin gestured at the ancient symbols. These tunnels were created by a civilization that predates both our peoples, one that understood secrets of the universe we're only beginning to grasp. And the hostile ships? Raven asked, their hands still on their weapon. The ones hunting us? Are they part of your program too? Torin's scales flickered with displeasure. No. They are a complication. Rogue elements who discovered the truth and believe this knowledge should be used for power rather than understanding. More Etherians emerged from other parts of the chamber, some working at control stations, others monitoring defense systems. Naira noticed they all wore the insignia of special projects, a division she'd always thought was merely administrative. Your crash wasn't an accident, Raven realized. They arranged it. Wanted to see how humans would react to an alien encounter. Very perceptive, Torin acknowledged. Though you weren't the intended contact, mountain researcher. Your presence here was unexpected. Another tremor shook the chamber, but the Etherian technology automatically stabilized the space. Displays showed the hostile forces had reached the collapsed nexus and were attempting to break through. They're getting closer, Naira said. Whatever your plans were, Elder, we need to act now. These rogues won't stop until they have control of this technology. And what would you suggest? Torin asked, his tone carrying centuries of authority. Share our secrets with the humans. Violate every protocol we've established. I already have, Naira replied firmly. I sent warning of the invasion, along with defensive specifications. Because I've seen what you apparently haven't, humanity is ready. Not because they've achieved some arbitrary level of technology, but because they have the wisdom to use it responsibly. She gestured to Raven. Look at what one human accomplished alone. They decoded alien technology, established a monitoring network, even reprogrammed our own devices. Not through brute force or blind luck, but through careful study and ethical application. Raven stepped forward. Your protocols assume advancement is linear, that species have to progress through predetermined stages. But real growth isn't about following a script. It's about how we handle challenges, how we adapt and learn. Another explosion rocked the chamber, closer this time. The rogues were breaking through the barriers faster than expected. Torin's scales shifted through complex patterns as he processed their words. The human speaks truth, he finally said. Perhaps our own advancement has made us rigid, unable to recognize different paths of evolution. He moved to a central control panel. Very well. We will share what we know, not just about the ancient builders, but about the greater galactic community. Elder, one of the other Etherians protested, the protocols will be rewritten, Torin declared. Because our young xenobiologist is correct. The greater crime would be to withhold knowledge that could help Earth defend itself. The chamber's displays suddenly flashed red. The rogues had broken through the final barrier and were approaching rapidly. Torin quickly began initiating sequences on the control panel. This facility contains a quantum transmitter, he explained. Powerful enough to reach every major population center on Earth. We can broadcast everything, proof of alien life, defensive technologies, even historical records of Earth's true past. It will change everything, Raven said. Human society, our understanding of history. Your species has shown it can handle change, Naira replied, moving to help Torin with the transmission. And you won't face it alone. The chamber's energy levels surged as the quantum transmitter powered up. At the same time, hostile forces breached the outer chamber. Weapons fire erupted as Etherian security forces moved to defend the facility. Once this transmission begins, it cannot be stopped, Torin said. Earth will irrevocably join the galactic community. Are you certain they're ready? Naira looked at Raven, saw the determination and wisdom in their eyes. They're more than ready. They'll surprise us all. Together, they activated the transmitter. The chamber filled with blinding light as years of accumulated knowledge flowed through the ancient network, carried on waves of quantum energy to every corner of Earth. The hostile forces pushed forward, but they were too late. As the light faded, Raven checked their communications device. Messages were already pouring in from their scientific contacts worldwide. The transmission had worked. Earth now knew it wasn't alone. So what happens now? Raven asked, looking around at the changed situation. Now, Naira replied, her scales shimmering with hope, we begin the real work. Learning from each other, growing together. The rogues will be dealt with, but they're no longer the greatest challenge. Indeed, Torin agreed. The challenge will be guiding Earth's integration into the galactic community while preserving what makes humans unique, their creativity, their adaptability, their different way of seeing the universe. Then it's fortunate, Raven said with a smile, that we have examples of cooperation right here. They gestured between themselves and Naira. Proof that different species can work together, learn from each other. As the chamber hummed with activity, Etherians and humans already beginning to collaborate on defending against the remaining rogues, Naira reflected on how far they'd come. Her crash landing, intended as a test, had evolved into something far more significant. It had proven that true advancement couldn't be measured by technology alone, but by the wisdom to use knowledge for the benefit of all. The ancient builders had left their legacy in these tunnels, waiting for species who were ready to understand it. Now, that legacy would help forge a new future, one where humanity and Etherians would face the universe's challenges together. You know, Raven said softly, for a supposedly primitive human and an enlightened alien, we make a pretty good team. Naira's scales shifted to warm colors of affection and pride. We do indeed. Though I'm no longer certain who was truly enlightened and who was primitive. Above them, Earth continued its spin through space, its people awakening to a new reality. But in these ancient tunnels, that new reality was already taking shape, built on understanding, respect, and the recognition that true wisdom comes in many forms.